What is structuralism? Structuralism is an approach to the study of language which considers a language to be primarily a system of relations. That is the place of every element in language. Speech, sound, word is defined by the way it relates to other elements in the language. We have already interacted about language, what is linguistics, scopes of linguistics, linguistics as a science, definition, Creole, Pidgin, level of linguistics, branches of linguistics. We have already interacted about these, and today I'd like to take you to the further about linguistics, the Chaucerian heritage. Structural linguist owes its fundamental depth to the great Swiss linguist Ferdinand de Saussure. So, structural linguistics owes its fundamental depth to the great Swiss linguist Ferdinand de Saussure, 1857 to 1913. His insightful observation on language as a system and his treatment of language primarily as a social phenomena became the guiding principles for structural linguistics. The central principle of the course is that a well-defined subpart of language called language can be abstracted from the totality of speech. It represents the abstract system of structural relationship inherent in language, relationships that are held in common by all members of the speech community. Since language, according to Saussure, forms a coherent structural system, any such approach to language which is devoted to explicating the internal workings of this abstract system is referred to as structural linguistics. The structural approach to the analysis of language is not only concerned with explicating the internal workings of language, but it also involves the segmentations of utterances into elements in terms of two basic and complementary relations: syntagmatic and paradigmatic. Associative, according to Saussure, the former looks into those elements which combine to form a larger unit, while the latter takes these elements which can be substituted the another in a given context. In structuralist description of language, both an inventory of the linguistic element of the language under analysis and statement of the positions in which the elements occur are taken into consideration. The former refers to the discovery procedure and the latter refers to the distribution. The case for such a taxonomic or classificatory approach to lingua was made explicit in course. It would be interesting from a practical viewpoint to begin. Let us determine what they are and to account for their diversity by classifying them. So let us trace the development of structuralism in Europe and in America. In Europe, it was largely based on the principle laid down by Ferdinand de Saussure. Very important. This is very important for examination, and you must prepare assignment on it. I want the assignment also on it that you must prepare, and I'll request you to send somewhere else, or whatever the way we can, but you must prepare. The development of structuralism in Europe and in America. In Europe, it was largely based on the principles laid down by Ferdinand de Saussure, and in America, it was associated with the approach known as Bloomfieldian, post-Bloomfieldian. And Bloomfield's taxonomy is very important. My dear students, whatever we learn, whatever we do, we get the information from the teachers or the friends or the peer group or from internet or Google Guru. When we get the information, after getting the information from our honorable parents, teachers, friends, peer groups or the internet or Google Guru, we get the knowledge. After getting that information, we get the knowledge, and based on that knowledge, we understand. And now it depends on every individual understanding, every individual interest, attitude and values. So according to your individual or according to your interest, attitude and values, you will understand your teachers or your parents stating or saying or expressing. So when you have the knowledge, understanding, then comprehension, you will comprehend. एक पकड़ होती है किसी भी चीज़ की, जो आप पकड़ेंगे इसे कि क्या नॉलेज काक चेष्टा वको ध्यानम स्वान निद्रा तथैव च अल्पहारी गृहस्थ्यागी विद्यार्थी पंचलक्षणम. तो द comprehension, how that crow, when you throw one piece of bread towards the crow picks it up in the air itself. So kakah chesta vako dhyanam swana nidra tathevcha. So that depends again comprehension, how you comprehend. And after comprehension, knowledge, understanding, comprehension, then you be ready for the competitive spirit. And then you apply that same knowledge in the society. If you become a teacher, you will be teaching. If you be a journalist, you will be expressing. So that depends on it. If you become a writer or editor, then you will be using that knowledge or language or linguistics or whatever. So my dear students, it was associated with the approach known as Bloomfieldian Bloomfieldian structuralism as a school of thought. Structuralism as a school of thought led to the emergence of structural linguistics, which provided one of the perspectives for looking at data. On, my dear, trace the development of structuralism in Europe and America. Differentiate between the two versions of structuralism and differentiate between paradigmatic and syntagmatic relations, language and parole, diachronic and synchronic studies. These are the important questions. The term structuralism stands for a school of thought. The term structuralism stands for a school of thought that developed in the 1960s in France in the wake of Claude Lévi-Strauss' Anthropologie Structure 1958 and his attempt to discover the objective meaning of human culture. Objective meaning of human culture, मानव संस्कृति. जैसे हम बार बार कहते हैं, हमारे माननीय प्रधानमंत्री भी कहते हैं, वो हमारी संस्कृति पर आक्रमण करना चाहते हैं. तो सबकी एक अपनी संस्कृति होती है. Discover the objective meaning of human culture. Lévi-Strauss sought to isolate kinship system as objective system, meaning that existed that could be analyzed independently of their particular application or of their meaning for particular individual. So, Lévi-Strauss sought to isolate kinship system as objective system of meaning that existed. I have told you about that in syntax, if you remember. That could be analyzed. I'm saying right from the beginning, the first class onwards. My dear students, now you are the 6th semester students. You must be very much evaluative. You must have analytical spirit. And you must have the spirit to judge what is right and what is wrong. Analyze independently of the particular application or of the meaning for particular individual. Meaning for particular individual. किसके लिए क्या अर्थ है, किस बात के लिए आप क्या कहने जा रहे हैं और कौन क्या है. यहां सबकी है मुझे खबर, दैट शुड बी योर स्पिरिट. नाम अब्दुल है मेरा, सब पे नजर रखता हूं, सबकी है मुझे खबर, आई नो एवरीबडी. सो दैट इज द स्पिरिट. Lévi-Strauss sought to isolate kinship system as objective system of meaning that existed, that could be analyzed independently of the particular application or of their meaning for particular individual, and that are amenable to study of the methods of the positive sciences. Structuralism appears to make possible of the establishment of autonomous and objective human sciences because it provides those sciences with their own independent and objective field of study. Therefore, as a school of thought, structuralism cannot be reduced to a single moment or trend. Rather, it has had a strong impact on many disciplines during the entire 20th century, be it linguistics, be it literature, be it music, be it myth, be it art, or even system of kinship. In fact, structuralism can best be described to adapt a term proposed by Basil Bernstein as a thematic region that brings together disciplines and the technologies they make possible, much as cognitive science. As I told you, the cognitive domain, knowledge, understanding, comprehension, competence, and application. As much as cognitive science, management, Dadu Searles, discipline, authority, division, unity, stability, order, so many things. There are 14 principles of management and 7 functions of management. Post-core, planning, organizing, directing, controlling, and staffing. Post-core. I don't want to touch all those things. I don't want to go to that side. Discipline and the technologies they make. In fact, structuralism can best be described to adapt a term proposed by Basil Bernstein as a thematic region that brings together disciplines and technologies they make possible, much as cognitive science, management, engineering, and machine do. The 20th century scholarship was based on principle that our knowledge of the world will not be complete unless we arrive at the structure of the system. Very important sentence. Listen once again. The 20th century scholarship was based on the principle that our knowledge of the world will not be complete unless we arrive at the structure of the system. That is, the relationship between the members of the system. Hence, the search for the structure became a characteristic of the 20th century scholarship. Hence, the quest for structure, desire for structure, pine for structure. Hence, the search for the structure became a characteristic of the 20th century scholarship and propelled an era of structuralism in scientific research. Structuralism believes that the individual phenomena of human experience. Structuralism believes that the individual phenomena of human experience exist but are intelligible through their interconnections and not in isolation. The interconnections can be accounted for rationally rather than just described and classified, or intuitively grasped in their unique peculiarity by looking at them. In their relational character, perceiving their connections as constituting a structure and finding behind endless variations some abstract patterns subject to simple general rules. Structuralism in your subject. Structuralism in linguistics. Although Lévi-Strauss' work had stimulated the development of structuralism as an intellectual movement, this stimulus has owed much of its force to the fact that Lévi-Strauss' work reproduces an approach that had been developed quite independently within linguistics. In fact, it was only with the encounter with the linguistics that he became fully aware of the theoretical, methodological, and philosophical implications of his approach. His encounter with linguistics further gave him the confidence to generalize his findings and to offer structuralism as a method for all the human sciences. My dear students, strictly speaking, structuralism in linguistics means a new approach to the facts already known. एक सोचने का नया तरीका जो पहले से हम लोग जानते हैं. Innovative practices in teaching learning process. Structuralism in linguistics means a new approach to the facts already known. The facts of treating languages as structures, that is, as total system or connected wholes in terms of their internal patterns of connection. So try to understand what? As total system. As total system. As total system or connected wholes. That means unity in diversity, oneness, all, adding everything. As total system or connected whole in terms of the internal patterns of connections, rather than as sets of isolated items and in terms of the historical sequence of development. It is the study of how the structure of these entities affect the way they function. It is the study of how the structures of these entities affect the way they function, in as much as language as a communicative system as a function. The structuralist model of language. The structuralist model of language insists on the social, that is communicative function of language. Structuralism in linguistics also implies an insistence on making a clear distinction. Structuralism in linguistics implies an insistence on making a clear distinction between historical phenomena and the characteristics, historical phenomena and the characteristics of a linguistic system at a given point in time. So, my dear students, structuralism in linguistics means a new approach to the facts already known. This is very important. New approach to the facts already known. The facts of treating languages as structure, that is as total system, or connected halls in terms of their internal patterns of connections, rather than as sets of isolated items and in terms of their historical sequence of development, are merely reconsidered with regard to their function in system. It is the study of how the structures of these entities affect the way they function in as much as language as a communicative system has a function. The structuralist model of language insists on the social functions of language. Structuralism in linguistics implies an insistence on making a clear distinction between historical phenomena and the characteristics of a linguistic system at a given point in time. This insistence on the twofold distinction was largely a reaction to the 19th century scholarship, which stressed on studying language through classical languages and subsequently made historicism their fundamental mark of thinking. It may be noted here that, in spite of insisting on studying language at a given moment, the structuralist approach is still capable of shedding some historical light on the subject. Historical differences between the structure of the same or two different languages can still be shown by the structuralist model of language. The fundamental principle of structural functional linguistics were based on the lecture noted of the great Swiss linguist Ferdinand de Saussure, 1857 to 1913, published posthumously as Cours de Linguistiques General, CLG. Cours de Linguistiques General, ये नाम है उनकी किताब का जो उनके मरने के बाद पब्लिश हुई थी, और फर्दिनांद दी सोसरे जिनका जन्म 1857 में हुआ और 1913 में वो एक्सपायर हो गए थे. So these principles entered into the structuralist model of linguistics and provided a turning point in the history of linguistics. Langue and parole. Language structure versus speaking in a language. Langue and parole, language structure versus speaking in a language. While making distinction between the linguistic system, and its actual manifestations, we arrive at the crucial opposition between langue and parole. What do you mean by langue? Langue means key. Langue is the system or structure of a language. It may be 1 mark question. What do you mean by langue? Langue is the system or structure of a language, whereas parole is the activity of speaking in language. So language is the system or the structure. Parole is activity of speaking a language. According to Saussure, within the whole field of linguistic activity, that means language, we should distinguish between the language system, that is langue, and speaking or writing the language parole. The three-way distinction may be understood: language as the general capacity that distinguishes man from animals. So what is language? Language, as the general capacity that distinguishes man from the animals. हमें मनुष्य एक सामाजिक प्राणी है, तो मनुष्य भी एक प्राणी है और जानवर भी प्राणी है, लेकिन मनुष्य को जानवरों से जो अलग करती है वो एक ही चीज है और वो है भाषा, लैंग्वेज. So language is the general capacity that distinguishes man from the animals. हमारी भाषा ही हमें जानवरों से भिन्न रखती है और तभी कहते हैं हम सामाजिक प्राणी हैं. हम जानवर तो हैं, बट हम सामाजिक हैं. वी आर सोशल एनिमल. Language as language structure which consists of vocabulary, principles of construction, idioms, rules of pronunciation, etc. अभी 5 मिनट पहले आप सुन रहे होंगे यहाँ पे मैना, 4-5 मैना आकर आवाज़ कर रही थी. वो आवाज़ आपके पास भी पहुँची होगी. तो दैट इज़ नॉट अ लैंग्वेज. दे कैन नॉट कम्युनिकेट. उनका पता ही नहीं चलता है कि वो कौन सी भाषा में क्या बातें कर रही हैं, लेकिन उनके उस हाव भाव से, एक्सप्रेशन से, जानवरों की किसी चीज़ से, एक्टिविटी से हम लोगों को थोड़ा बहुत पता चल जाता है. वी अंडरस्टैंड, बट वी कैन स्पीक. A dog cannot say that I am suffering from pain, my leg is paining, or I got hurt. So that is the difference. Language as the general capacity that distinguishes man from the animals. Language as general structure which consists of vocabulary, principle of construction, idioms, rules of pronunciation, etc. Parole as language, both speech or writing used in context. For Ferdinand de Saussure, language is something that is at once social and constraining. Language is something that is at once social and constraining. It is both a social product of the faculty of speech and a collection of necessary conventions that have been adopted by a social body to permit individuals to exercise that faculty. So, it was written in his book, Cours de Linguistique Generale. We are not going so in deep because thus in masters you will be studying all these things in detail. We are just making you to be aware with linguistics. While the former means that it is the possession of the community of speakers, while the former means that it is the possessions of the community of speaker, that means language is the possessions of the community of speakers, the latter suggests that it is something fixed. Parole, on the other hand, is a realm of freedom. It is an individual act, willful and intellectual. So, parole is the realm of freedom. It is an individual act, willful and intellectual. Language, parole distinction has formed a basis for all the later structuralist model of linguistics. The arbitrariness of the sign. The linguistic sign in an arbitrary linkage between a signifier and a signified. The former is a sound image while the latter is a concept. Ferdinand de Saussure believed that there is no normal connection between sound and meaning. There is no natural connection between sound and meaning. There is no natural or intrinsic connection between sound, images, and concepts. But here I am against the personality or the linguistic, because we find so many words of the birds and the names have been given accordingly. I will let you know all these कि जो नदी का जो पानी है, जो कल कल करता हुआ जो ध्वनि है, तो वो कॉलिंग साउंड कहाँ से ली गई है। ये चिरपिंग साउंड जो पक्षियों की चहचह जो पक्षी की होती है, वो साउंड कहाँ से ली गई है। तो भाषा के भी अलग अलग सिद्धांत हैं। भाषा का दैवीय सिद्धांत। सो बहुत सारी भाषाएं, उनके अलग अलग सिद्धांत है। आई विल बी डिस्कसिंग दैट separately. Saucer believed that there is no natural connection between sound and meaning. I hope some of you may agree or may not agree to this. Like we say, when we hear the sound of serpent, hissing sound of serpent, bleating sounds, or roaring sound of lion, culling sound of the water of river. So many things are related, but let us see, because we are discussing about Saucer only, not others. I don't want to confuse you. Ferdinand de Saucer believed that there is no natural connection between sound and meaning. It means somebody has believed that there is a natural connection between the sound and the meaning. There is no natural or intrinsic connection between sound, images and concepts. It is purely arbitrary or conventional, and there is nothing particularly cat-like about the word cat, or sense of continuity about the verb ending ing.